There is a big problem with our healthcare system. The current healthcare system treats just the physical symptom. Rarely they look at the issue holistically.
Why the mainstream healthcare overlooks the emotional recovery and the identity rebuilding from what you've researched and found.
Maybe the healthcare system and all the scientists, they think that a person can mend themselves.
How you found Spark and Heal.
People told me, well, you have this tech experience. Why won't you transform this story that you post on social media into something that can connect to your tech experience? Why won't you do something to help other women to amplify your voice? And that's how the story of Spark and Heal started. Women with serious illness are 6 to 7 times more likely to be left by their partners.
My guest today is Inna Shchepanska, the founder and CEO of Spark and Heal, which is a health tech platform transforming survivorship support for women after breast cancer, with a special focus on young survivors. Welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues. I'm your host, Ali Horiat. My goal in this program is to educate our audience about various global issues and how we can help. My guest today is Inna Shchepanska, the founder and CEO of Spark and Heal, which is a health tech platform transforming survivorship support for women after breast cancer, with a special focus on young survivors. Before founding Spark and Heal, though, Inna spent over a decade building global strategies and products at Google across Europe and Asia. But her most transformative journey began with a breast cancer diagnosis. After completing treatment, she realized that medical care saves your life, but no one teaches you how to live again. Navigating post-treatment life, early menopause, and PTSD, Inna sought structured, science-based, emotional, and lifestyle support. And when she couldn't find it, she actually went out and built it. So today, Spark and Heal helps women not only survive cancer, but rebuild confidence, vitality, and community. She now serves as a patient advocate with the European Society for Medical Oncology and the Organization of European Cancer Institutes, using data, empathy, and lived experience to drive change in women's health. Inna, hello, and welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues.
Hi, Ali. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you here. Before I start with any questions, I just wanted to say that we share something. My mom had breast cancer as well, about give or take 20 years ago, and survivor, recovered, difficult journey. And I think I relate a little bit to what you're doing and the things that we're going to talk about a little bit, because it's one of those diagnoses that don't leave you. It remains with you all your life. It's not like I've broken bones and I've gotten over them. I don't even remember some of the bones I broke because it was so long ago, right? It just, life goes on and it's not a big deal. But when you have cancer, it's kind of like you have cancer forever in your mind. It's really difficult to say I had cancer and then it's finished. And like I notice even some of my friends who I know who have gone through the same diagnosis, it never really leaves. So that's going to be one of the things we touch on. But I want to start from your journey from Google executive to breast cancer survivor and how you found Spark and Heal, because it's an extraordinary story. I want you to start with the moment you realize that healing doesn't end when treatment does, that survivorship itself needs its own form of medicine. That was an important point for me to kind of, start with.
Yeah, I'm gladly share with you this, but first of all, congratulations to your mom with like going all this way. It's not an easy path for sure. And like you rightly mentioned, we always have cancer. We may be rid of it, but it's always somewhere with us because unfortunately it may come back. And a lot of survivors, they have this PTSD based on this fear of recurrence. Mm-hmm. And as to your question, long story short, diagnosed with breast cancer in 41, thought that my life was crumbling because you don't expect to have this when you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s. Cancer, any cancer, is like the old people illness in our minds. I started looking through the stats. There are more and more women who get cancer younger and younger for various reasons, but sadly that's the fact. And when you are young and your life is in front of you, you don't expect something like this happen. And so my mom also had breast cancer 12 years before me. And I kind of knew I was on the red line, let's say. I always tested, but I went through ultrasounds, but unfortunately I got it also. And the treatment, the whole situation happened, the diagnosis happened when I lived in Germany during the first year of pandemic. I just moved to Germany. I didn't speak the language very well. Everything was in lockdown. I was with my partner at the time, and it was particularly scary because I could not... nobody could travel to support me. My parents couldn't travel. My friends were also stuck in their respective countries. I felt like everything was just crumbling. Everything was against me. Luckily for me, the German healthcare system is amazing. And I went through everything. Like, I never decided who would be my doctor. I was just so blinded by the diagnosis. So I went with all the processes with all the doctors that were assigned to me through the system. And I was lucky enough to have great, compassionate doctors. So the treatment, so also during the treatment, 2 days after I had mastectomy, the war in Ukraine happened. So I was in the hospital when Russia invaded Ukraine. In a way, it was a good thing for me because I could be sedated quite regularly because I was like completely hysterical. I just wanted to go to my parents who were in Ukraine. So it was not an easy period overall. But all in all, the recovery happened because I was quite active in terms of physical activities. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm also a swimmer, enthusiast swimmer. I swim quite a lot. So my recovery probably took a shorter time than somebody who would not be physically active. And so I was there sitting, counting days until my last treatment ends. And I thought, the moment the treatment is over, my life comes back to normal. But there are two things, like my life, I didn't know that my life would never go back and it would never be normal, because what is normal? What happened though is that I started experiencing all these emotional deviations, which I didn't expect I would go through. I started hormonal treatment after chemotherapy, and it put me in induced menopause. So in a matter of days, I started experiencing all these symptoms that in a healthy woman would go through in a decade, for example. So I was experiencing mood swings and all these hot flashes and all these bodily reactions that were really hard. Like, it was literally like I felt like I was hit by a bus. And not only that, I experienced chemo brain like any other person who goes through chemo. And it lasted for a couple of years. Like I thought that everything would go really fast, really like everything would go back really fast. But then I read somewhere that each month of chemo needs 2 to 3 months of recovery. And this was another devastating moment. And actually, what was the biggest problem for me as well as for other survivors was that when you're in treatment, you go to the hospital almost every week. And you can always ask questions. You feel secure. Mm-hmm. But from the moment you finish treatment, it's almost like you're falling off the cliff. You are free. You're out in the world. But then when all these side effects start appearing, you are alone. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to react. You still don't recognize yourself, neither your bodily feelings and expressions, nor your emotional and psychological states. And then you have to deal with this back to normal thing. You have to deal with those people around you, with work, with your daily tasks. And there is no manual about how to do that. So something interesting that a onco-psychologist told me is that survivors and caregivers, we are not on the same page. Because when the diagnosis happens to a patient, first is the state of shock. But the minute or a few minutes later, everything shuts down. You get this tunnel vision and you just have to go through this. You go through treatment, almost numb. You finish it. And only when you finish your treatment, this numbness falls down. And you are actually reliving this kind of shock and stress. During this time, your family was in the shock during your treatment. And so they're kind of like one step ahead of you. So you're in treatment, you're completely numbed, your family, your caregivers, they're all in stress and in the shock. And when the treatment is over for them, everything is normal, but not for you. You enter this type of stress. And so nobody also teaches caregivers how to deal with that. So as many other survivors, I was dealing with this dichotomy of behavior. They were saying, yes, but you should be happy you survive. And I was like, well, actually now everything is just happening. Everything is falling on me. And to speed it up, my partner, as a result, left me because he, as he said, he didn't have enough sex with me because as a result of chemo, my libido disappeared. I had a lot of problems with my sexual life, on the emotional level and the physical level. He didn't manage to reconnect with me on the emotional level, and he left me. And after my treatment, I also found a new job. And I was laid off during the probation period. And instead of saying that, something was wrong with the company, I started blaming it on me because I was still in this chemo brain situation. So I felt like everything was even worse than during the treatment. And I started talking about this on my social media. And because I have 11 years of experience in Google, people told me, well, you have this tech experience. Why won't you transform this story that you post on social media into something that can connect to your tech experience? Why won't you do something to help other women to amplify your voice? And that's how the story of Spark and Heal started. I decided to create this platform that I had when I was going through the treatment with curated information and curated and guided information for women either during treatment or particularly after treatment, how to navigate this life with like being new you. And why particularly young women? Because as I mentioned in the beginning, there are more and more young women who are diagnosed with breast cancer. And in their 20s and 30s in particular, they're all digitally native. They may be a little bit more I don't know, susceptible, or well, maybe they're more on the internet. They're more on YouTube and like other digital platforms, communities, and that's what can resonate with them. And my goal is to improve their quality of life, at least in one aspect. But it mainly concerns their emotional and socio-psychological well-being. And so I'm just about to release this platform, and as we speak, still having some difficulties on the technical difficulties, but hopefully tomorrow or in a couple of days, this is going to be live. So that was the story of Spark and Heal.
And your story throughout those years. When it rains, it pours sometimes. And, hearing you go through the cancer itself is a lot, and it's heavy and it's difficult. And then, your life changing on the personal side with your partner, the war happening, your parents being there, and you in Germany, all of those things combined, very crushing. But the fact that, you took all of this and you turned it into positive and kind of are looking to use that to make impact is really amazing, because a lot of people may have just collapsed. A lot of people may have just, especially, getting a new job and then losing that job as well, and all of those things. It's not easy to come out the way you did, but you did. And, you're now focusing on exactly the emotional and psychosocial health issue, not just physical recovery. So you mentioned the platform. I want to ask, can you describe how the platform works and what makes this approach different from traditional post-treatment care? Because in many cancer hospital centers, you get this pamphlet when you're leaving. Like, okay, you've finished your radiation or you finished your chemotherapy. Here's a pamphlet. You can call this place or go to a meeting or something like that. But like you said, they don't touch on the day to day and the living issues, and really be interconnected in a way to help people through it. So what are you doing, and how is this helping women essentially go through?
I would start from the end.
Okay.
There is a big problem with our healthcare system overall, because the current healthcare system treats just the physical symptom, which is probably okay. That's how it should be. Rarely they look at the issue holistically. But then, especially in the Western countries, well, that's how I feel, but probably also everywhere else, the health system is quite strained. Like in Germany, I had only 10 minutes to talk with a specialist, with my oncologist. I had regular meetings, and she had no time, because she had every next 10 minutes, she had another client. So I had to write all my questions down, and she would answer them very fast. And of course, she wanted to spend more time with me, but she just couldn't under the pressure. And then most of her answers to my problems were, here's another pill, here's another, I don't know, suppository, right, or a drop or something. Like I ask her, okay, what do you think about acupuncture? What do you think about that? Like, oh, I have problems with my partner. And she's like, take a pill, take this, like this will make your vagina dryness go away. It works for them, but it's just a very simplified answer to that. So she didn't take me as a full person. She just took one organ at a time or one problem at a time. And it felt completely debilitating to me. Not only to me, but to many people. So yeah, going back to this, our healthcare system is strained. And because people, and women in this particular case, women live longer and they're getting diagnosed earlier. That's why we have more and more patients. And the healthcare system is still operating under kind of like, I don't know, very old ways, which are still not adapted.
Mm-hmm.
For example, given all of this AI progress that is happening, there is still very little AI applied to the day-to-day of a doctor for various reasons. So this is like one big problem. And so the doctors and the healthcare system that we experience today deals very detailed, very precise physical problems, but they don't have the time to care and to look after everything else. And so what I am trying to do is, I'm not a doctor, so I cannot address physical issues, but I know how to address psychological issues and emotional issues because, for one, I was there on this other side.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was on this other side. And then I talked to many, many women during my journey of building Spark and Heal. Also as a yoga trainer and a coach, I know that certain what we can call them, certain activities can be particularly healing. And I experienced them on myself. For example, journaling. When I was going through different treatments and I was angry with myself, I hated my body, hated my life, writing a very simple gratitude journal transformed how I saw myself and the illness in itself. Small meditations, like I say to all of the other women with whom I work, 1 minute a day is enough to just calm your brain and try to escape from this anxiety and worry. There are a lot of things like that. Well, I call them tricks, but maybe they sound like tricks to someone. But all of this, all of these holistic approaches, they are, most of them are verified and scientifically proved. And when I offer something like journaling, for example, I support it with scientific papers to prove that it's
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
just sort of BS.
Yeah. Yes, because you're very right here, and I just want to interject for a moment to say that the era of meditation helps, or walking in the forest helps, or journaling helps. In the 80s, we were really gung ho about medicine in the form of, chemotherapy is out or radiation is out. These are new sciences. These are new. Let's all rush into that. And we left all of the things that worked for millennia, right? And we walked away from all the holistic stuff. Now, 50 years after a lot of big tech advancements, we're coming back to the reality of, yes, we are grateful for the tech that can, put a very light cast on my broken arm and heal it better and everything else. And I can still go swimming with it and everything. Versus, when I was a child, you had a cast, you had to hold it like this. It was weighty. If you sweated it, it got, it melted off. And so there's a lot of tech advancement. But the thing is, we focus so much there that we thought that, this is the only way. And actually, there's a French saying, when you translate it in English, it pretty much means it's better to prevent than to heal. And it's a very famous, French quote that they use in French medicine, or their approach to medicine originally, many years ago, many lifetimes ago, maybe. But the point of it is, prevention happens in exactly where you're coming from. You need to start early with the holistic approach so that you don't fall into these spaces of your body changing because your mind has changed and you have no control over your mind anymore, right? And so I still am a huge advocate for the holistic approaches, meditations, yogas, walks in the forest, all of those things, because like you say, not only has science proved it, but also I start questioning always going back to science for proof. because I want to go back to examples for proof. When 80 people have, become happier in their lives by doing something, I don't need to go to science to say, can you validate this? Because science may not have the ability or the tech to validate it, but I see it happening every day to 80 people in front of me. I should do it. You know what I mean? I should believe in it. I should have more faith in it. So I just wanted to say, yeah, I'm a very, very big advocate of how much you have the power to heal yourself if you're doing it the right way. Even possibly in the future, on a cellular level, on a level of understanding yourself so granularly, so cellular level that you can actually target your body yourself.
Yeah, you're right. I couldn't agree more with you about all of these techniques that from super hippie and woohoo, they became like normal kind of daily practice of many people. There is another issue with women's health, though, and women in particular. Women throughout history are known as caregivers, nurses, like mothers, so grandmothers, we care for others more than we care about ourselves. And then when we are hit with something as big as cancer or any other serious illness, we fall into something that we resist believing. We don't want to be on this other side. And often men don't know how to properly care about us. So there's also another layer of education of caregivers and men in particular. There are very dramatic stats which I read about after I was left by my boyfriend, that women with serious illness are 6 to 7 times more likely to be left by their partners versus men with similar diseases. And it's very hard. This very hard truth I experienced when I went on a Facebook group about sex and breast cancer, because 99% of women experience decline in their sexual health. This is, first of all, loss of libido because as a result of chemotherapy. This is also vaginal atrophy and dryness. So it's extreme pain on a daily basis also, and also during penetrative sex. There is another issue with our breasts when we have mastectomy, because breast is so much connected to our femininity, but also sexuality. For many women, this is a very sensitive organ. And in the moment breasts are altered, sometimes we also lose sensitivity. Many women lose both breasts without the ability to reconstruct. So it's a loss of identity, it's loss of sexuality, it's loss of who you are. For many women, this is quite dramatic. I'm not even talking about like losing hair, which is also, for me, nothing. But for some women in some cultures, this is also part of who they are. And so get used to like this role of caregiver and often the strong woman, and then suddenly you are on the other side with a partner who doesn't know what to do with yourself, and you don't know what to do with yourself. So this medical healthcare system clearly doesn't address. And very often what has to be done after the treatment is to regain self-centered, to regain this confidence, to start loving yourself again. And going back to this whole treatment situation, you as a woman need to not lose this ground, which very often happens. And again, I'm trying with my project to bring this ground back to women, talk to them, let them know that nothing is wrong with them, that they need to start loving their body again, regardless the scars, regardless what happens. Because if what happens when I went on this Facebook group, I realized that so many women were left alone or with children, especially this older generation who became housewives to their husbands to grow children, and suddenly they're in their 60s and their husband leaves them for another woman, and they don't have any financial support, they have never worked in their life, and they blame themselves. So there is all sort of horror happening on this level. And if I walk on the street and I see a woman like this, I would never know that she goes through something like this. So again, building this platform to me is just some sort of not only support, but like a safe space where I hopefully help them rebuild their self-love and self-esteem and just be brilliant and beautiful again. And then continue to explore everything else.
On the one hand, it's beautiful that you are starting this so that women can have this opportunity and a space to come back to. And on the other hand, as you're talking, I feel it's so sad that for the last 20 years of high tech where, there's so many platforms for everything. There's an app for everything and all of those things. Not one government or community or, health system has kind of come out and said, we really need to address this as a, large scale operation. And we really need to include this as a large scale operation. And I think a lot of it, again, comes from perhaps traditionally a male-dominant sector and industry of medicine. As you said, women traditionally were nurses. They weren't doctors. Women traditionally were not in the spaces of being the minister of health of a country. Rarely, even today, do you see that. It's starting to change, but it's not the status quo. And so I think that patriarchal presence in medicine guides the conversation today. And it still guides the conversation. You look at sports medicine, there's a lot of profit in it, and there's a lot of male athletes that are making a lot of money for the industry. And so there's a lot of tech and gadgetry and everything for sports medicine. And women in sports now are using the same gadgetry, but it wasn't designed for them. It's just passed along to them because they exist as well. But it was meant for the men, and that. So I think that's the sad part of our global culture, that we don't appreciate that and we don't think about bringing it to the core. But at the same time, I'm happy that there are women like yourself in tech, in 11 years of Google experience, for example, as an executive. There are many women who are now breaking into these fields that were boy club only, and it's changing the face of things. So what you're creating is going to be one of those pioneering things that, again, changes the face of things, and we're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it in all sorts of, not just sciences, but even in dating apps. Before, dating apps were designed primarily from a men's perspective. Now there are dating apps that are designed more focused on women, for example, and how women want to approach the situation. So in every sector, we're starting to see these advancements, and I hope yours becomes one of those that really can support and can help, and that saves people, especially young. When like you mentioned, women in their 60s, in their 70s, they're a little more resilient. They're a little more kind of, they've lived a life, they have some experience, they try to get through things because they have before, generally being mothers, being women, they've gone through circumstances. But when you have a 24-year-old girl who's very much affected by her appearance, by the future of her life, she has all of these things she starts thinking about, and she has no outlet, no support, no friends, nobody to really come in and say, it's going to be fine and it's going to be okay. I've been through this. Let me tell you how to. get better and go through it better from an emotional side, as opposed to just the radiation or just the chemo or just the mastectomy or any of those things. So now I said my part. I want to hear, because you've probably done the research on this, why is it any different from what I said about why the mainstream healthcare overlooks the emotional recovery and the identity rebuilding from what you've researched and found? I mean, is it something worse than what I said or different than what I said that you want to share?
I don't think I have an answer to this question, because we have, as a society, I mean, we have started research on emotions and on psychological health only recently. I don't know, maybe we actively talk about mental health for the last 10, 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same as women's health. I'm glad you mentioned this before. When we look at scientific medical studies, most of them were done for men, even though they sometimes can be mixed, like done on the mixed group. Until today, we still don't know what all the hormone, like how different medicine affects different female hormones, because like in men there is only one predominant hormone, in women we have four. And if we look with this to problems about mental health and research on women's health, if we look at the whole history of society, it would be just like 2 seconds, right? So it's very good that we talk about this. I know a lot of people around me who say, yeah, but we have reached parity, we have reached the level where women have it all. I think, yes, just look at this 2 seconds in the history of humankind. We need to push it a little bit more. And the same about research on emotional health. We need to do more, because there is so much we don't know and we're just scratching the surface. So we are just at the beginning of this. Why there are not enough research? I don't have an answer to this. Maybe this is still not so important as to, I don't know, remove the tumor, for example, or to treat a broken bone. This is, well, definitely it's more urgent to put the bone back. Maybe the healthcare system and all the scientists, they think that a person can mend it themselves. Like, I don't know. So I don't have an answer to this.
Yeah, I think the last thing you said is very true. I mean, the doctor deals, like I keep saying, the broken arm, the doctor deals with the bone, the physical bone, the break. But the doctor's responsibility is no longer in their mind. It's no longer attached to, how do I make this person not scared of going back to that activity? Because, I may break a bone from a specific sport, okay? And now, after I heal, maybe I'm scared of going back to that sport. There's some psychological issues there, right? No doctor is in charge of taking that on unless you go to a psychologist or something like that, and you yourself kind of, examine that and push it forward. It's not part of the healing process. The healing process stops when they put that machine and they open the cast and they take the x-ray and you're good. The bone has healed. It's fine. Go home. That's it. Your file is closed at the hospital. It's up to you to say, I still have issues. The doctor doesn't do that. And going back to that needs to definitely change. And I think the problem with that is a lot of the countries have adopted this universal healthcare system, yet a lot of countries don't put enough budget to the healthcare systems. They have it, but it's not budgeted well. There are horror stories in every department of health because it's understaffed, whether it's the ER rooms and people waiting for 8 hours to see a doctor and dying in the ER because there is not enough staff, all sorts of horror stories, right? But I think part of not doing what you're suggesting is also the fact that there's no budget for it, because the governments are not allocating the budget. So they cannot now open a whole psychology department in the hospital and add 2 more floors to the hospital. And I mean, you did your treatment in Germany. In Berlin, there's a hospital. It's called Charité. It's a city of its own. It's huge. It's literally, it should have its own postal code and be a city. Everything they don't offer any of the services that you mentioned. Those services are basically, you find the doctor yourself, you book, you pay. These are separate kind of services. It's not part of your healing from cancer. It's not part of your recovery. It's not kind of part of your treatment. None of that. It stops at the physical in every one of their departments. And it's probably, if not the largest, one of the top 3 biggest hospital systems in the world. And, and it's one of the best, but it's always ranked as one of the best. But when you see the rate of it being how it stops there, it reminds you that, yeah, we have a very long way to go. And even on a very simple level, for the audience, I use this as a joke all the time. So you go and get over-the-counter medication. You go to, you have a cold or something, you go and you get some cold medication. And it'll tell you adults take, for example, 2 pills, right? Now, the definition of adult is age-based, but the capsule that you're going to take is size-based. So if I'm 6'2", 210 pounds, and for example, you are 5'2" and 110 pounds, we both take, by prescription, that pill, the same pill. That dose of that pill for you and for my body is completely different. But there still is no such thing as kind of giving you a size issue, or like women take 4 pills, men take 6 pills or something like that. So, and then when you go back into the studies of it, actually, and this I know from a friend of mine in the medical research space, the studies are done for the average male or the average man, right? The body, all the studies are done then. So the woman is just tag along kind of thing. There's no science. It's really disaster. So I hope things like what you're doing really start helping, and the flood of women coming into this field really start making the change. Now, early in the conversation, you said something. You said you talked about how information, having all the data, having all the information, having all the physical answers and everything, it doesn't heal. You may treat the cancer, but you're not healing the person. So this is where we step beyond data. We step beyond, the numbers, the charts, the algorithms, all of those things. We go into a space of community, a space of support, a space of compassion, of kind of understanding and helping and supporting and growing out of this, and giving it some structure in that sense. What do you think that women need? Basically, what you're doing through the app, but what do you think women need to go from this survival mode of cancer and coming out the other side? Like, in my mother's generation, you survived cancer and you came out the other side, and you're just thankful that you survived it. And then all of the socio-emotional, psychological problems that you had, you kind of buried under the rug yourself, or you cried in the shower so nobody sees you. Like, that was where it was. And you hated yourself internally, but you still cooked and had the family dinner and smiled in front of people and everything else, because God forbid you have emotions, right? Then they call you hysterical. So, or unbalanced or things like that. Those are the norms of society. So how what are you going to do to change that from survival to you are going to be a thriving woman? Everything's going to be fine. You're going to gain all your confidence back. You're going to go on.
That's a very good question. I can compare my treatment and my healing with my mom's. So she was also treated, she had almost similar treatment. She was maybe 15, 17 years older than me at the time of her diagnosis. So she had a longer chemo period, followed by also mastectomy and radiation. but she never complained about any of the side effects. I don't remember. I mean, I don't live with them. I haven't been living in Ukraine for more than half of my life. So I couldn't see her every day, but whenever we talked, she never mentioned any of the side effects. She is a doctor herself. She is a surgeon and like this strong woman. So she never, well, even if she has a cold, she would never tell me.
And she's Ukrainian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that helps too, because you have to be stronger when you're from Ukraine. I know a lot of Ukrainian people, they're very strong when it comes to mindset. They don't break easy. So that also affects Ukrainian women. Like, you cannot say you're hurting.
Right, but it also has its toll, because keeping everything inside yourself will just burst sooner or
Yes,
later.
eventually, yeah.
Yeah, I was not understanding myself. I couldn't understand everything that was happening. There are now, when I think back, there are some moments in this recovery time that they were just like so foggy. I don't remember, like even months, they just disappeared from my memory. If I didn't have a diary, I would not remember those. But it's more a norm for our generation and younger to talk about our feelings, emotions, how we feel, that this is not right. And in a way, as a society, we made a very big step in terms of addressing mental health issues. We talked about this earlier, recognizing all of this, all of the people, neurodivergent, all sort of, all sort of mental problems, like even depression. 20 years ago, if you say you're depressed, they say you're cuckoo, right? But
yeah, exactly.
or don't you even mention something like ADHD, like, oh, you're just like stupid. I remember.
You were scared to say those things because you possibly couldn't even get a job or certain things. It really affected your life. It wasn't just your friends calling you crazy. It affected your life in so many ways. It affected how the bank offers you financing and stuff, because like, this person's not all there. Maybe we shouldn't give him a loan. Those were issues because they didn't understand it. You said, if you say I have depression or I'm dealing with something, they'd be like, oh, this person may be crazy, because all of that went under crazy. Everything, there was no science. Culturally, that's how it was.
So now it became a norm, and I'm glad that we are normalizing these things, but they're still not enough. And so what bothers me is that today we talk about these mental issues, and about disabilities, about body positive image. But we are still not talking about hidden disabilities. And that's where we are positioning ourselves, people after cancer. All of this, like chemo brain and all of the changes with induced menopause that are happening in women after breast cancer, they are not visible. And from the moment your hair grows back, you're normal, you're good to go.
Yes.
And for instance, the issue I had when I found a new job, so I told the HR and the hiring manager that I'm recovering after breast cancer. But I didn't actually think that this could be a problem, like my chemo brain. I had hard time focusing on complicated tasks. But so the company who hired me, they put me in to manage a team, and there were a bunch of issues that I could not deal well with them, not because of my competencies, but because of my of my psychological state. Like my cognitive abilities were not the same. Back in the day, like at the time, I thought I was completely recovered. I was good to go. And now looking back, like, of course I was not. And even though my manager and the HR, they knew about this. And in Germany, you have a disability card 5 years after breast cancer, after you recovered from any cancer, you are considered a person with disability. And so they were aware about this, but they didn't support me enough during this probation period. They just kicked me out. for them, it was easier to do it like that. And that's what happens with a lot of women. Back to the statistics. In European countries, between 40 and 60% of women still work 5 years after the treatment ends. Which means if you take on average, well, it all depends on country, but let's just simplify for the sake of this conversation. 5 years after the treatment ends, half of the women who recover, they don't work because they don't feel they're good enough. They can't. The workplace doesn't support them enough. And this is all due to this invisible disability. And the same how our family and friends sometimes treat us without this awareness. So going back to your question, I still think, so I think we'll still need this effort to talk about this invisible disability now, alongside mental disability, body positivity, and all of this, let's say, the spectrum of manifestations of who we are as a result of a serious illness. So that's kind of sad, but there is hope.
That's what I'm thinking while you're talking. It's not, you know what it is? It's not that it's sad. What saddens me about it is that we are not coming together to push the things that matter more to the surface. So I think all of this, growth in feminism and understanding these things, these are the places that they should focus on as well. It's not just about if the man gets $1 an hour at work, I should get $1 an hour at work and not 80 cents. That's true and it's right. But when you've raised that awareness, also raise the awareness for the other things, come together and kind of build on that and bring the education on that and everything else. I mean, what you're talking about right now is not something. There's a lot of breast cancer in the world. There's a lot of women going through. It's not like it's 2% of women anymore. It's a big percentage of women who have breast cancer. So that big percentage of women, and then all these institutions and foundations that are dealing with, supporting breast cancer, the pink ribbon, all of those things, nobody is coming up and doing stuff like this. You know what I mean? Nobody's really going deep into the belly of the issue and saying we need structural systemic changes in this way. So when a woman goes through breast cancer, okay, you get the 5-year disability card, that's great, but what are you doing to re-enable the person through the disability, right? Because there are disabilities that are permanent. I get into an accident, I can't walk anymore. I'm on a wheelchair and it's permanent. Okay, that's a permanent disability. You have to live with it. You have to learn to change your life to support it. But this disability is something that can be rehabilitated and you can be 100% again. You don't need to be even 99%. You can be 100% again. To do this, you need to take measures to do it. But I find that's the sad part, that we not only are not taking the measures, but when the measures show up, it's so hard to get funding for it and to grow it and to build it and everything. I'm sure you don't have $1 billion thrown at you for what you're trying to do and all the things you're trying to do, right? You're going out there, you're really pushing to be able to bring it to life and to be able to grow it and be involved in it really heavily. So I don't know why our focuses are not aligned in terms of understanding the healing processes that we really need to invest in.
Well, probably it's like with your question about emotional health. So what is we treat whatever is the most urgent. Between broken leg and breast cancer and like a tumor and emotional healing, the fastest and the most urgent is to treat the cause, right? So we eliminate the tumor, we fix the bone. Good, you can walk, you can live again, like you're not dying, that's good. And everything else, it's much more difficult to research and to treat, because this is such a wild array of different types of psychological problems that you have to deal with. The same is without invisible disabilities. It's easier to deal with somebody who doesn't have a leg than with somebody who deals with chemo brain, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now
yeah.
you advocate for exactly what you're talking about now, and with the European oncology organizations, and how do you finding that this advocacy is evolving? Are you seeing that your advocacy and other people's advocacies and this combined drive and momentum to the stuff you're talking about and bringing to light? Do you feel that there are policy and practice changes and in Germany or the EU or any other systems that you're speaking with?
Changes are happening, but very
Okay.
slow. But very slow.
Okay.
What pleases me to see, like what makes me happy to see, is that these organizations started inviting patients, former patients or current patients, to hear their voice. Last year, I participated in the conference, like in the working group with the European Union Cancer Organization, about healing protocols. So I told my story. I told about what I've been through and what I'm building. And of course, my question was, why you're not building this? And of course, it's more complicated than that, especially in Europe with all the member states where it has to be consensus. But things are happening. I could see from what kind of research is happening, what kind of initiatives are starting to emerge. Things are happening, but yeah, very, very slow. And the fact that the legislators and scientists are talking to patients, it's already a big step. Another part, I just wanted to give an example about legislation about the right to be forgotten. So this is a very sensitive topic for everyone who had a serious illness. If you want to book a premium healthcare insurance in private, or if you want to take a loan in the bank, from the moment they know that you had cancer, you have to pay premium. Mm-hmm. And so good news is that in some European countries, this right to be forgotten starts acting on year 5 after you're done with the active treatment. For example, next year, I don't have to disclose my medical information to the private medical insurance. So this would be legal for me not to disclose this. Mm-hmm. But there are only few countries currently in the European Union who adopted this law. There are, I don't want to lie, but it's probably 6 or 7 countries only. Mm-hmm. So in other countries, this law is still not pushed through their local government. But this is just an example how being a patient advocate can shift things. This right to be forgotten didn't happen overnight. It's a work of many years of preparation, but it happened partly because of this collaboration with patient advocates.
And you know what's funny? This law piggybacked on the accident insurance law. So when you drive and you have an accident, you have to disclose, and you get new insurance, you have to disclose you had an accident, and it stays with you for a certain amount of years. But after a certain amount of years, the insurance company cannot force you to pay a premium if you have never had an accident in those years. So different countries have different rules, but it goes from 3 years to 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. But after that specific year in the country, it's not allowed anymore to force you to pay a premium because you had an accident, 8 years ago. And so this became a system driven on the back of that system. So again, capitalism beats humanity because that system worked on numbers and finances and, the car, the value, the insurance, everything is, an equation. And when it comes to humanity, it's kind of like, how do we balance this? How many years should it be? Let's talk to the doctors. What is, there's a lot of financial questions that came about. When the finances were able to become an equation, they started giving this some real legs. They started saying, okay, we can measure it now. The insurance companies are on board. So their lobbying is okay. We approve of this as well because it can work to our benefit too. Let's pass the law. And so it's being adopted and it's growing. And the reason why it's such a slow growth and such a slow system is because it also ties in to the taxation and the liability of the person associated with it. So it has nothing to do with the psychological support. The law is happening, but it's happening for money. It's not happening for the real reasons it should be happening. There's a big difference, and I see that because I know what you're talking about, and I've been following that, and it amazes me. I talk about it quite often, and it amazes me that the protocols for passing these laws and rights of humans is not based on the rights conversation. It's not, we're not going to court and saying this is a human right, that if they're in this situation, they should have this right. No, we're proving that the math works, that the capitalism works. So then it should be provided. So unfortunately, that's what it is. Now,
There is hope.
yeah, there is hope. I mean, it's coming. The rights are coming one way or the other, but I on a very romantic level, I want to feel that we are making these changes more for humanistic reasons than for, kind of checklisting our budgets and approving these. So that's the difference. Now, on a personal level, you were in Berlin, right? Corporate life and everything. And now I find out, I didn't know this, but speaking with you earlier, I find you're in a part of France that I know pretty well, in the countryside in the southwest. And it's a beautiful part of the world. It's really something. I like it for many, many different reasons. Now, I want to ask, what has the transition from a city like Berlin to the countryside kind of taught you about life balance, redefining what success means? Because Berlin is very much it's not the same. Nothing becomes New York or, Toronto or these like really hardcore cities. But Berlin is also very active, very success is very materialistic. It's very based on value and what area of Berlin you live in and everything else. But, when you move to the countryside in France, all of a sudden with a quarter of the price of a condo in, for example, Mitte in Berlin, you're buying a huge old palatial space with like big grounds and a river flowing through it and everything else. And life changes, you're not the value, the money, what success means in life, healing, no traffic, knowing your neighbors, all of those things matter. When I was in your region, I mean, it's very different, people have relationships with each other that are much deeper than other places. I mean, even the little chapel in town has a lock and a key, and everybody knows whose house it's in, and they pick it up and they go and they open it themselves. And like, there's many, many different like little values that are interesting. You go into the bakery, people ask each other how they're doing, how their kids are doing while they're buying bread. That doesn't happen in a city. So how has life changed for you going from, Berlin to countryside?
Well, I haven't bought this mansion with a river flowing through it yet.
You will soon. Once the app flows, I'm giving you good vibes here. Once the
Yes,
app
thank you.
flows, you're going to have that 17th 18th century house with the wooden shutters and the rivers and everything else.
Yeah, I'm actually bootstrapping, so I'm just seeing my bank account melting every month.
That happens when you take on this kind of apps and systems and business. It
Yeah,
drains you like
but
this.
either way. So that's why I'm launching, because I wanted to make it perfect. I realized that it will never be perfect. I just need to do a small step at the time, and then I will see. And also breast cancer brought me here, because during my treatment, I of course, was scared that I would die. Actually, before that, when they took the biopsy, and there were 5 days when I had to wait for the results, so you don't know. I could feel my tumor. I had several tumors, so I could feel them physically. And they were so big, and I was afraid. I was like, will I die? Is it incurable? Like, what kind of cancer is it? And during these 5 days, I thought about everything I wanted to do. It's so ridiculous because before I knew this, it was like this universal truth that I knew. Don't postpone things until the end. Do what you want. But when you're healthy, you look at this different. And during these 5 days, I thought that I should have done this and that. And one of the things, I wanted to live in a countryside. I really wanted to live in the middle of the fields, somewhere where like my neighbors are 1 kilometer away, and just to be quiet, to hear birds, to see the greens, and not be disturbed by traffic, air pollution, and such. And during the treatment, the chemo treatment, I decided, I made a pact with myself to actually follow my desires. And I just waited until, because I had 5 or 6 surgeries after the end of treatment, so overall. And I waited until all of my surgeries were done, so I could move to this countryside place where nobody knows your name. No, actually, everybody knows your name. It's also funny because I do not have driving license, so I'm still, I always lived in big cities in my life, right, with amazing public transportation system. And suddenly I'm somewhere where I need a car. But luckily I have an electric bike, so I can commute from my fields to the city center. And now people know me, and they say, "Oh, if you want me to bring you to Toulouse, I can do this. I can tell you when I'm going, and I can bring you." Complete strangers, but I see them in the bakery, for example, or I signed up to the choir, and my choir colleagues, they say, "Oh, if you need a lift, I will give you." So this is a result of this whole treatment situation.
Good choice.
It's great. It's a little lonely still because most of my friends are somewhere in Berlin or in other cities in Dublin, in Paris.
But they would love to visit you.
They would love
it's such an escape for them.
When I buy the mansion, when I buy this chateau.
Yes. When you buy that big house and you post on Instagram, you will have a lot of friends because they will all want to come to that field. And yes.
But at the same time, being completely remote allowed me to focus on the project, and I can just work from moment to night. For example, just before the launch, this last 10 days, I have hardly left the house. Even though I have these beautiful fields around, I just take my cup of tea in the morning and I walk around in the fields, and then I come back and I work. So I hope that the project will work, and as a result, I can buy myself this house, and you're more than welcome.
Oh, for sure. And you need to fill the house too. So you need to get some pets and have a relationship and all of those things so that there's more life and there's more community in the house.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. And did faith play any role in your ability to overcome everything that happened? Like, when you say the 5 days that you're waiting and, all of these things, not religion. I myself, I'm anti organized religion. I don't like that, dogmatic pressure, but I'm highly spiritual. And I find spiritual people have more hope. I mean, you can have a connection to whatever you want to call it, God, the universe, consciousness, capital N, nature, whatever name you want to give to that, source or whatever. I don't care. But the point is, we tie to something grander than us, bigger than us. It gives us bigger purpose. It gives us something cosmic, right? Do you think that has anything to do with your ability to come out here and have a smile on your face. I mean, when you're speaking, you have a smile on your face and you're like, I went through 5 and 6 surgeries and you have a smile on your face. And I'm thinking, whoa, my face drops and your face is all, happy. So where's all of this coming from? Where's all this positivity coming from?
Well,
Because I want to celebrate it. I really want to
thank you
celebrate
so much, but
your
I'm pretty
positivity.
sure that if you had to go through 5 or 6 surgeries, you would also smile. When we go through some difficult moments, we look at them with lightness, I find, when these difficulties are behind. So to answer your question, I'm not a religious person. I think I'm spiritual, but it's not what helped me during this treatment. It was mainly the desire to survive. And
But why?
I don't know.
Why do you have a desire to survive?
To experience the world, to continue meeting with my friends, to just do these mundane things, to live in the countryside house. To be honest with you, I didn't give this topic a very deep thought, but I think that my body rather was guiding me through this whole process. Okay, I feel like shit after chemo. I can hardly move anything. But I was thinking, okay, tomorrow it's going to be better. And then every day it's 1% better. So I can lift my arm. I can stand for 30 seconds without fainting, something like this. It was probably the most primary survival symptom that was guiding me through my body towards this recovery. Because in the end, I didn't have a choice. I would either give up or recover.
So then the yoga and everything come after, or was it there before your diagnosis?
Yoga came maybe 10 years before the diagnosis.
Okay. So that's spiritual. I mean, if you really get into the weeds of yoga, it's not a sport. It's a very spiritual exercise, So you have that spirituality also supporting through.
So probably it was somewhere on the back of my head, but I don't remember this particular spiritual moments that I had. It was super pragmatic for me.
Right.
It was super pragmatic.
Right.
Especially because chemo had such an effect on me. Like literally next day after chemo, I could hardly lift my hand. So I needed my partner to walk me to the toilet. I could not stand. I was just like, like a jellyfish, when jellyfish is thrown on the shore under the sun. That was kind of how I felt. Different women have different experiences depending on the chemo they take and depending on their bodies. But in this particular moment, I was just guided through the body. I tried to meditate 1 minute a day, and because of course I was completely anxious, stressed all the time. And yoga for cancer, one of my fellow yoginis with whom I studied to become a yoga teacher, she sent me a book, Yoga for Cancer. I read it and I tried to slowly implement this into my life, because you need to move despite everything.
Right.
Yoga played this little role, but it was more on the pure pragmatic bodily sensation.
So during that period, it was survival was the end point. And then once you cross that bridge, you then turn spiritual, because what you're doing now with the technology that you're bringing and the platform that you're bringing out is purpose. It is no longer for survival. You don't need to do this to survive, neither physically nor mentally. The reason you're doing it is community. The reason you're doing it is purpose, is support, is to do something based on the experiences you had, so that you can affect and influence and support other people. So maybe during the moment, it was just so much was going on that you're just blocked out and you're like, I need to make it to the other side of the water here. I need to cross this river. I need to stay alive and make it to the other side. But when you got to the other side, you took a deep breath. You're like, okay, I'm fine. I'm safe. I crossed the river. The crocodile didn't eat me. Now I can relax and think and see what I'm going to do with my life. And then that kind of kicked back in. Final question for you. And thank you for all the answers. I'm sure they're going to be very helpful to a lot of people. The platform will be, but just what you've shared today was really powerful. Very short. If you were the most powerful person on earth right now, right? Let's just say, boom, you close your eyes, you open your eyes, you're the most powerful person on earth, in moral influence and everything. What is the first action you take to ignite a global shift towards harmony? What you're doing is kind of harmonizing, is bringing people together to that as well. So if you had all the power in the world, what would the one thing be that you think really would advocate to harmony? I asked this of all the guests, and I get some really amazing answers that I would have never thought about. So, and you cannot say buy the mansion in the countryside, because we already went over that. So it's got to be something more original than that.
No, I would say something very simple. I wish that everybody could be a little bit more compassionate towards others and empathetic. This is maybe very banal, but only by measuring somebody else's experience and life on yourself, you can be more human. And I don't have much to say. I just really wish that everybody was like this, because
that
somewhere
on
top of my head, when I meet a new person, I always give full credit to these people. I always think somehow that they are similar to me, and turns out that not everybody is empathetic and compassionate and kind of kind even.
But it's fine. You know what? Don't let that change you, because your kindness, your compassion, your empathy will eventually dominate and it'll rub off on people more than the other way around. So I always tell people, don't change, don't give up hope, don't be more shielded or anything like that, because it is that power of compassion that is going to liberate us and is going to harmonize us. So your answer was perfect.
I'm not changing, but I really wish more people were like that. Then I think we would have less problems.
No.
Yeah.
We are, I think we're heading that way. I think there's a lot of awakening and a lot of people are starting to talk about it. And I think there's a lot of going back to that compassion that we've lost over, especially, the last 120 years. So hopefully things are getting better. Inna Shchepanska, thank you very much for joining us on Compassiviste Dialogues. It's been lovely speaking with you. And most importantly, for showing us that healing isn't the end of a story. It's just the beginning of transformation. Your journey from technology and crisis to empathy and empowerment reflects the very essence of Compassiviste, of what we create here, at home. And it's about turning pain into purpose. It's about rebuilding to a more compassionate world. And that is exactly what you've done from your experience. You've taken all of the pain in your experience, all of the suffering, all of the issues, all of the ways that it all just rained on you, and you've decided to create an umbrella for everybody. And they can now all come under that and shield from the storm. So I applaud you, and we will definitely be here with all of our membership, all of the Compassivistes here to support what you're doing, to support the app, to support the growth of this platform. To our audience,
thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's not a thank you. I think it's duty. It's duty for us to be part of it, because you're doing the work. We're the ones who should say thank you. You shouldn't say thank you to people supporting what you're doing, because you're doing the work. When Noah builds the ark, Noah doesn't say thank you to the people who come on the ark and get saved, right? People say thank you to Noah for building the ark. So somehow over the millennia, we've changed the roles into you having to thank people for joining the app or for making use of it or anything like that. But it's not the case. It's our duty to support you as a community, because that's how progress happens.
Well, thank you for
Okay.
thanking me.
Yes. To our audience, please subscribe to Compassiviste Dialogues so I can bring you more amazing stories like Inna's, and that we can share this and we can all come together and make the changes we need to make so that we progress towards harmony. Explore the links below for Spark and Heal, Inna, and her new platform, and as well as Compassiviste. We're here to help change the world together. I'm Ali Horiat.